He still wants to take the stand, even though my advice is at this point, you should never take the stand with a gag order. But he is so firmly against what is happening in this court.
Let's dig deeper on all of this with former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman. Seth, there's a lot to get to. Thanks so much for being with us. We heard there from Alina Habba, the attorney for President Trump, saying that she counseled him not to take the stand, especially under a gag order. Should he testify? What are you anticipating?
Well, we have to remember this is a civil case. So if there were really criminal charges that could be brought in the background, you, of course, as an attorney, have a huge concern that your testimony could be used against you criminally in a future case. Now, it's not likely that there's a criminal case going to stem from this. But with Mr. Trump, look, putting him on the stand is always a huge risk.
As we've seen him outside the courtroom multiple times, he has a tendency to be very boisterous and to potentially push the envelope with the judge and others involved in the case. I want to pivot from one presidential family on trial to another presidential matter, presidential legal matter, and that is Hunter Biden. He's facing 9 new charges tied to tax fraud, allegations of tax fraud. These appear to be significantly more severe than what was in the plea agreement that fell apart over the summer, no?
Sure, they certainly are. This past summer, he was facing 2 misdemeanors. In all likelihood, he would not have gone to jail. He would have moved on with his life. This new indictment, far more serious. The thing that gives me pause about this indictment is that Hunter Biden has paid back the money with penalties. So it's a question of prosecutorial discretion. Should a case like this be brought, given that the IRS has been made whole? And again, different people can reach a different conclusion on that.
Yeah, prosecutors argue that though he paid the money back, he lied multiple times to the IRS. And how do you think that plays out in a courtroom?
Well, it's not a defense that you paid it back. So certainly if you don't file your tax returns correctly, you lie about your taxes, you can be found guilty of a crime. And the fact that you paid it back later really is irrelevant. It's really more of a question of prosecutorial discretion. Sure. Does a prosecutor want to do this?
He does face a maximum penalty of 17 years in prison. How likely is it that he gets the max? No,
not likely at all. I mean, there's sentencing guidelines. It would likely be much, much less than that. But still, it could involve a prison sentence, which is, of course, serious.
Republicans in the House have argued that he's been involved in all sorts of illicit, inappropriate foreign business dealings. He's been investigated for those now for more than 5 years. That wasn't in this new indictment, right? So what does that tell you?
Well, what it tells me first is that this prosecutor may be trying to bring a very narrow case. He feels like he has the facts to prove beyond a reasonable doubt tax fraud. So why complicate things? Why bring in extraneous other types of charges that could confuse a jury? Let's just stick to the tight facts and get a conviction.
Notably, Hunter has been subpoenaed by Congress. They've essentially asked him to show up for a closed-door deposition next week or face a contempt of Congress charge. If you were advising him, would you tell him to show up?
Well, no, not at this point. Clearly, he has the right to plead the Fifth. He always has had that right. There's been a debate between him and Congress as to whether he would appear in public or behind closed doors. For me, as a defense lawyer, that would take all of that off the table. I would not have him go in.
Yeah, his argument is that House Republicans would potentially use select portions of his testimony against him and take them out of context. Seth Waxman, we have to leave the conversation there. Appreciate the perspective.
Sure.
Thanks, of course.